about you. But sometimes it's really frustrating to me, resisting that impulse when something bad happens to pass the blame on to somebody else. It's really, really easy to want to look to find somebody else that we can pass the buck to, pass the blame to, shift responsibility to. And it seems like so much of our public life gives us examples of people who always point the finger at somebody else. When something goes wrong, well, it wasn't my fault, it's the other guy. It's the dance that political parties do when one is in power. Well, it was when the other party was in power, they're the ones who caused the problem. And vice versa. When the tables turn and a different party's in power, well, it's the other guys, they caused the problem. It feels like we are constantly bombarded on things like social media all the time with people, instead of being able to admit, yep, I messed up, I shouldn't have said that mean thing, or I was rude here, just doubling down on it's not my fault, it's somebody else's, or you've got the problem if you're too sensitive. It's so easy to shift blame to somebody else, some other person, some other place, rather than saying, no, responsibility is mine. If something went wrong, I need to bear responsibility. If something has to be faced, I will face it. And it's one of the things I find so compelling, honestly, about Jesus, is that in Jesus we're presented with somebody who doesn't shift the blame or point it at somebody else, who doesn't find other people to be scapegoats, or when there's challenges or difficulties, doesn't say, hey, it's not my problem. Jesus keeps offering himself as the one who does the hard thing, who faces the difficulty, and who doesn't shift it off to somebody else and says, it's not my job. That's not Jesus. That's how Jesus acts all the time in the Gospels, but it's especially clear this coming Sunday. And we hear this passage that comes out of John's Gospel where Jesus uses the imagery of being like a shepherd. And it can be real easy to make that sort of quaint and sentimental. It conjures up images of kids dressed up in bathrobes and towels and pajamas and Christmas pageants to be our shepherds and carrying little stuffed animal sheep, that kind of thing. But when Jesus talks about being like a shepherd, it's with this image of the buck stops with me. I don't shift it off to somebody else. I will take responsibility for the life and the well-being of my sheep. In fact, that's how you know Jesus is the real deal, he says. He compares himself like a good shepherd to just the hired employees. And he goes, the hired hand, that they don't really care about the sheep, because when trouble comes, when the wolf comes, the hired hand runs away because all they're interested in is basically a paycheck. They're not their sheep. They're just there to get their wages for the day, and if things get difficult, they'll find another job. But a good shepherd says, no, these are my sheep. I won't abandon them. I won't bail out on them. The buck stops with me to help take care of them. When the wolf comes, when they're hungry or thirsty or need somewhere to go, the good shepherd says, it's on me to take care of those things. One of the things I find so compelling about Jesus is that that's what he offers to us as a way of life, grounded in him as the one who does the protecting, him as the one who does the guiding, and not that he passes off the blame to somebody else when somebody else fails. Jesus says, no, I'm going to be the one. I'll take care of my sheep. It's such a different way of leading. It's such a different picture of a beautiful way of life, especially when so many other examples around us are always passing the buck or blaming somebody else or saying, hey, this isn't my department, I don't have to handle it. Jesus doesn't do that. He brings us into a new kind of community too, where we no longer have to be so afraid of getting in trouble with somebody that we keep looking for ways to pass the blame, but we can follow his model of leadership too. We can be people then who step up and say, when something doesn't happen, right, I don't have to pass the buck or blame somebody else. Part of how we model genuine love to other people is when we take responsibility or making sure their needs are met rather than looking to blame or shift off onto somebody else. It's a mark of maturity in life, and it's a mark of what makes a good shepherd, as Jesus says it. So I want to invite you to think about this week, even if you've never lived on a farm or been around sheep or even visited and seen animals at the state fair, to picture that important difference when there are so many other loud voices around us giving us only the example of when trouble comes going, hey, I don't have anything to do with this, it's the other guy's fault. that we're called into something different by a Savior, a shepherd, a leader in Jesus who says, the buck stops with me. I'll take care of it. I'll bear responsibility. I will put myself between the danger and my own flaw. In the end, that's what the cross is all about too. That when the danger comes, Jesus says, I will put myself between the danger and my own. I'll be the one who takes the hit. I'll be the one who's the human shield to protect my sheep. That's how we're loved, dear ones. That's the kind of life we've been pulled into in this community called church, and it is such a needed alternative to all the other blame-passing, scapegoating kind of acting there is in the wider world. That's the difference it makes to be led by a good shepherd. That's exactly what we've been given in Jesus. So join us for that conversation this coming Sunday, the fourth Sunday at Easter, when we try and get past the sentimentality of hearing Jesus as our shepherd to actually where the buck stops. See you Sunday.